One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the center of a very high-profile one at the moment with Candace Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired, or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic, Piers.
At all?
At all.
You can't give me any insight into why she departed?
Another thing that would have ruined the bit, but I was very close to just starting to talk really nasal and really fast when I was talking about our involvement with the Daily Wire, because it's very easy to sound like Ben Shapiro, but he always sounds like a parody of himself.
No hints. I'm not going to speak to this.
Can I ask why?
I mean, you can ask.
No, I can ask why you don't want to say anything.
Again, you can ask.
I'm only curious because I know what a staunch defender of free speech you are.
Ooh.
It would surprise me if it had been someone's opinions that would make you want to part company with them. However,
the only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not.
Okay. One thing I was going to say just real quick is that, Piers Morgan is, I'm trying to come up with some polite synonyms here, but whatever. He is what he is. But despite that, this is so fucking British. It's like, I'll ask because I would be very surprised, given your well-known commitment to free speech.
He fucking Hugh Grant, that Hugh Grant ass, just kind of like floated up there. I was talking with Andy before the show that, when it comes to Piers, it's just like, I think there's some real demons probably in the British journalistic class that I'm not even very aware of, but some of their people compared to our people at the same level, they just seem to have an ounce more of at least I'm going to challenge you a little bit, even if we're sort of on the same side. I'm also, maybe it's only when it comes to Ben Shapiro. Who is the conservative guy that Ben just got wrecked by, the British?
Andrew Neil.
Yeah, Andrew Neil. We're just because we're both conservatives doesn't mean that, I don't know if that's what Piers would describe himself, but anyway, it doesn't mean I'm just going to give you these softball questions all the time. You know what I mean? So I was caught off guard before.
I mean, Piers is just kind of a not that impressive centrist as far as I can tell, but but Andrew Neil is a real right-wing Tory, right? I mean, it's just that he works for the BBC, and British journalism conventions are enough different that you're expected to ask people hard questions, make them squirm a little bit, just to show that you're serious,
just for fun.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I do want to keep going here.
Not actually in management. Jeremy Boring and Caleb Robinson are in management.
I'm sure they don't listen to him.
To Candace or anyone else. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform. I've never called for Candace or anyone else for that matter to be banned from YouTube, to be banned from X, to be banned from any platform. That's a different story. Obviously, when it comes to any publisher gets to make decisions about what it wishes to purvey and not.
I mean, I'm just not going to labor this, but one more point I would make is it's been reported extensively that the reason for her departure was because her comments had been perceived by people at the Daily Wire as anti-Semitic.
Again, I'm not going to comment on this, Piers.
Okay. Rabbi Shmuley.
Okay.
You comment on him because Jeremy has actually commented on.
Okay. I will say the next part about Rabbi Shmuley is quite interesting.
Okay. Well, we could do Rabbi Shmuley in a minute. I've thought about that, by the way, that I do see that the good rabbi has open DMs on Twitter, and I'm like, he seems crazy enough that I could actually imagine him taking invitations from random podcasts. And I thought about it. It's like, but I don't actually know that I want that. Like,
yeah, will
like
he
it
show
doesn't.
up wearing
It doesn't.
that costume that he wore? And
Andy, I was me and my therapist made a. My therapist made me make a solemn vow that I would never think or acknowledge the existence of Shmuley's forum costume.
you know what's even crazier? Do you know that his daughter runs a
Yeah,
sex,
I do. There's a lot of
kosher sex toys.
Yes.
Well, I think when I heard that, Andy, I think you. I know that from you. I think that I was like, okay. I just thought he was one of these, guys that just kind of came from the same ecosphere as these other right-wing Zionist figures. And I'm like, oh, this is a certified weirdo. And no offense to anyone who has a daughter who owns a dildo shop, but I just think this guy's in a different playing field than some of these other people.
No, look, I know
he's
a
goofy weirdo. Yeah,
I know half of our listeners have daughters with dildo shops. We definitely don't want to alienate that huge demographic, but yeah, look, I think that the daughter with the dildo shop isn't even the main thing. It's that he's like promoted the daughter's dildo shops. Like, no, you're right. I mean, this is not just like your run of the mill, like right-wing Zionist creep that like you could find 1,000 of. Like, this is a special creature. There's only one of him, and so that's why I'm like almost fascinated enough to send the invitation. But then it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, especially if we're not on like another platform, I'm just the host, that it's like, well, I mean, he's just gonna like yell stupid shit, and I don't know that that's gonna serve any like purpose or be interesting or educational for anybody. But
it's about how the sex toy is slaughtered, Jim.
Now I'm just imagining like a cartoon, like sentient sex toy, like hanging upside down, the like kosher slaughterhouse style.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a lot to talk about with my therapist.
Yeah. You don't want to mix dairy with your meats.
Yeah. They don't. I'm not going to go down the road of riffing on the dairy and meat jokes that can be made here. So we're good taste is going to prevail, and we're gonna skip right past that. But on the also an interesting question here, right, about the why it matters, right? Because kosher usually only matters for things you're going to eat. But anyway, it's good question. It's like there's a classic story about this like great rabbinical authority, the Maharal, is being asked, like this woman comes in and she's so concerned, as like that she has a pet cat, and wait a second, but like her cat's kosher. And because he doesn't want to embarrass her, he like takes like the biggest, heaviest book off the shelf and like makes a big show of like doing this. It's like, it is not kosher, but you can still keep it in your house. But yeah. Okay. So, and by the way, I love the smile we paused on here. This worked out really well, but it's just smirky fuck. But anyway,
his whole body language changed as soon as Candace Owens was brought up. It's just hilarious, just kind of watching him just tense up. If at some point, Jake, you should play it back in slow motion.
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple of things to say here. One of them is the one Jake already said, which is that it's fucking hilarious that he's acted as if he doesn't have any say over who gets fired at the Daily Wire. He's like, yeah, I co-founded the company and I still own half of it, but I'm not making like day-to-day management decisions. Like, I'm sure if I expressed an opinion about what I wanted to happen, nobody would listen to that.
Imagine if like GTAA expanded and then like Jason became the CEO and it was to give them an argument network. And then, I get fired for, I don't know.
And I'm like, hey, I don't Jason's making the hire and fire decisions. I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
yeah, exactly. Just be
Jake who? Yeah.
Yeah. We can let people in the comments think about what take I would actually have that would cause Ben to. I was gonna say Led Zeppelin, but I love Led Zeppelin, so I have no it's got to be something else. Jason says y'all don't want that, but yeah. So that was. Yeah. No, but that was bullshit point number one, and there was something else. I thought
no, that was bullshit point number one.
Yeah.
But then, like, number two is the thing. I'm going to do the credit where credit's due here thing and quote somebody who I agree with about like almost nothing, as is, I think, very clear from the times we've played him on the show in the past. But I actually saw Saga and Jetty, of all people, making this point earlier today, where he was like, look, you can take this line. We're a publisher. We're under no obligation. There's no free speech thing. Like, that is a position you can consistently take about this, but then don't fucking complain if there's like a controversy in the New York Times about publishing the Tom Cotton op-ed or something like that. It's what, they're a publisher, right? Like, what's the difference? And I can even understand, like, look, they're, publishers that have points of view, and, they're going to tend to have stuff that reflect it. But also, when you have people who are generally within, the camp of who you would have, and by the way, let's not pretend it's anti-Semitism is the issue and I'm not saying that to say Candace Owens is not an anti-Semite. Candace Owens probably is an anti-Semite, but I don't think that's why she got fired, right? Like, I don't think she got more anti-Semitic in the last 6 months, right? Like, I mean, all of her classic comments about how if all Hitler had wanted to do was make Germany great again, that would have been fine, and all that stuff, right? Like, that's that all predates that they didn't have an issue with, right? So it's not the anti-Semitism, it's the criticism of Israel, which I understand they wouldn't make a distinction between the two, but like that's why she got fired. But like, when you have people who are generally within your camp and they disagree with you about some things, and then the question is whether to keep them on or fire them. I would say, look, is it a free speech issue exactly? No, not really. And you could say that like the Tom Cotton thing wasn't either, right? But like, but is there a free speech adjacent issue there? I think there kind of is, right? That there's like that the question is like, how open are you to exposing your audience to a little bit of tension between, opposing points of views and, letting them figure stuff out for themselves, right? Like, do you guys remember Ben Glebe? Do you know who that is?
Rings a bell.
Okay, so he's a comedian and like a pundit, and he goes on like I don't know if I think he might just be like a guest host, but anyway, I've definitely seen him on the Young Turks a bunch, right? And he was the one who did the debate with Charlie Kirk the week before I did. The dolphin fetus guy, right? And he's like god awful on Israel Palestine, right? He's really, really bad on it. And I don't know. I mean, like, I've seen him and Cenk like yell at each other about it on air, and they still keep on having him back on air, right? And it's like, I don't know, kind of makes me think a little bit more highly of those people and a little bit less highly of the Daily Wire, that they're like a little bit more thick-skinned about having people who are going to say things they don't like be on their, whatever the internet version is of airwaves, and, and go back and forth with it about it. Like, I hate everything he says about it, but it's like, honestly, I think it's like, yeah, if you're confident in your position, I mean, fuck it. Let Ben Glebe come on and say his stupid bullshit.
Yeah, I think, I'm okay with them letting somebody loose if they want to argue that some viewpoint they expressed is so against the core value of the channel, but that's just not the argument that he's making. Instead, the argument he's making is the one that you already said, and the only thing I wanted to add is just that, you know, I'm not the first to say this, but there's free speech as like a legal question and also free speech as just a general value. And people conflate the two to try to sidestep the second thing, which is like, do you generally believe in like a very, you know, in a marketplace, to use a Daily Wire metaphor they probably like, but a marketplace of ideas, like, do you genuinely believe in that? You know, and I think that value is very different. You know, having that value system is different than like, do you legally believe in like, you know, the right to have like free speech? They're different things. Exactly. And he's just going, you know, he's doing this knee-jerk BS response based on the first. If he wants to argue that, you know, supporting Israel is just like a core value proposition on that network, just in the same way that maybe if we had the GTAA network and then Jay Andy's show, he starts, you know, talking about the free market every day, maybe we'd have a talk with him. I don't know. But I feel like at the end of the day, we'd have to make that case to our subscribers of like why the show is let go. I don't think that everyone is mandated to, you know, to keep everyone that they hire on infinitely on their show necessarily, you know, on their network, but no, he's not even making the case. So that's the problem that
I think that's a weird argument that you make, because tomorrow I'm actually covering Wall Street on Movie Night Extravaganza.
No, don't worry, Andy.
Yeah. No, if you start to notice a very different art style on the show in the near future, this is why. No, I mean, look, I do generally believe, and I wouldn't use the phrase free market, open marketplace of ideas, because I don't love that metaphor, but I would maybe say the open lib coffee shop of ideas. Right, that's the
anarchist coffee shop,
the co-op coffee shop,
anarchist co-op
coffee shop. It's like, the more I describe this, the more annoying it sounds. The less I like this metaphor either. But anyway, this is. Can you imagine the people? This would be like an Infinite Portlandia episode. The anarchist cooperative coffee shop of ideas. But anyway. Like, look, I have a, you know, but it's like, I'm generally in favor of providing a chair for everybody to come to the coffee shop and express their ideas. But and I also I saw Skellum from chat saying, you know, that like, if you really take the sort of legal, really hard line on what's a free speech issue, even big tech censorship would be fine. Right. And it's like, look, I think it's legitimate to say there's a difference. This is like the part of, you know, other Ben's argument here that I know isn't totally crazy, right? It's like legitimate to say there's some difference between like a platform and a publisher, but like, you know, I think that I think that even so, right? It's like, I do think what you said earlier, right? That there's like a difference between the legal issue or even the sort of like protections that you might hope for on an open platform and a sort of general value of hashing shit out and, you know, letting people have their say, and that he is like collapsing a lot of that to avoid just like forthrightly saying like, yep, nope, sorry, nobody can disagree with me about this, which look, if I ever had to fire you for shitting on Led Zeppelin on the show, I would just say it, right? It's like, no, sorry. I have a, you know, he said that, you know, I don't know what would be the take that you know, he said that it was like a
second-rate Kiss cover band. I can't even think of it.
I would actually quote that every subsequent Monday to like remind people why you weren't here anymore. But, I mean, it's like. It's just the whole thing's incredibly disingenuous. And, you know, and I also think that to, again, call balls and strikes here, I actually think Owens herself had like a pretty funny response I saw on Twitter earlier, which was, hey, Ben, we agreed not to talk about it. I see you keep going on shows and talking about it while pretending not to talk about it. Would you like me to do the same? Right, like, which is like, that does kind of feel like that, right? Because it's like, if you're really not going to talk about it, don't talk about it. But like, a lot of this stuff is like definitely not talking about it. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more. Go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.